Alex Caruso joins the Thunder because what we really needed was for the West to get better. Plus, we'll talk about the draft. And if the Nuggets play Boston or another team like them, can their best players get targeted the way that the Mavericks' best players were? We'll talk about all that and more on Swipe and Gripe on Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for joining us and being a part of our community. We appreciate you guys joining us Monday through Friday and checking us out on Twitter and all over the internet. We do appreciate you guys being a part of this community. It means so much to us. Today's show is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use code all lowercase LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. My name is Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network. You can catch me on Tuesdays on Locked On NBA. I'm joined by Swipa. You can catch him on Twitter at SwipaCam and on his YouTube page and on the Bleacher Report app and all sorts of other. Where else are you? Where else are you at, Swipa?
Player's Choice, 3 days a week.
3 days a week.
Player's Choice, 3 days a week. And then Mile High Sports and all that. Yeah, tap in.
Support and the Mile High Sports Bar as well. So make sure to check that out as well. Support our guy Swipa. On today's show, we're going to talk about the Western Conference getting tougher once again. We're going to talk about a little bit of draft talk, and we'll talk about whether or not the Nuggets are susceptible to the same problems that the Dallas Mavericks fell into in the finals. Glad to have you guys with us here on a Friday. All right, Swipa, let's start here. So the Oklahoma City Thunder trade Josh Giddey straight up for Alex Caruso. I texted with OKC people yesterday who were like, yeah, we have no idea how Sam did this. No idea. No idea how Sam pulled this off. No picks. Just traded Josh Giddey. Now, look, let's take the off-court stuff, which there was no case brought against. Let's put that to the side. Okay. He's got deficiencies as a player. He was a really good player his rookie season and struggled to fit in with this iteration of the core once it shifted to Shea and Chet and J-Dub. Like, that was a struggle for them. Giddey's a really good playmaker. And so the idea is, like, he's going to replace what they're going to lose with Lonzo Ball, who may or may not ever play basketball again. And so, like, that's kind of the idea. I get that. Not getting a pick out of OKC is insane. Like, it's just ridiculous. Like, OKC can't be that attached to them because they have so many, they can't keep them all. So not being able to get a single asset out is wild. My question for you is this. They may not have been able, like, Giddey was a top, I think he was what, 8? I feel like he was 8.
7 or something, 8 or 7.
Yeah, somewhere in there. So, like, Peyton Watson's not that. But could the Nuggets do you think the Nuggets could have beaten this offer for Caruso to pick him up as a replacement for KCP?
Well, they felt, it looks like at least, that they needed some upside in playmaking and some offensive creation. I don't know what they're going to do with Zach LaVine, but it doesn't sound like that they're going to hold on to him. I don't know what they're going to do with DeMar DeRozan, but are they going to re-sign DeMar DeRozan? So it's going to be Kobe White and Vooch. So I think with that, they said we needed some passing, especially a player that's a little bit bigger, 6'8", that can play in between those spaces. He can create opportunity for Kobe, for Vooch. He's good in transition. But here's the thing. I think Josh is I think the idea of Josh, he's like an offensive version of what Ben Simmons was at his apex. You know, maybe next year he gives you 18, 8, and 8, and it's really solid. He can shoot 33%, 35% from 3. He can hit those mid-range shots, like he can get to the basket, create opportunities for people. He can rebound well. They're not going to be able to hide him on defense, but they're not going to be in a situation to have to hide him on defense because they're not going to be trying to make the playoffs, I think, next year if they do blow up the team. So I think he fits what they were looking for on that end. But for me, what's confounding about this, there have been several reports over the last couple of seasons, Matt, that people wanted Alex Caruso out of Chicago, and they were willing to pay a pretty premium dollar to make it happen. Now, Josh Giddey, as of a couple of years ago, was a top 10 overall pick, so they are getting value back from that standpoint. Right. But given the fact that Josh Giddey was unplayable for the OKC Thunder in multiple playoff games, that the defense's best option to guard OKC was to play off of Josh Giddey. so that they can have an opportunity to stop Shea, Kaysen, Lou, J-Dub, all the rest of these guys. So for them to be able to say, Josh Giddey is our fourth best offensive player, and he's our worst defender. So let's bring in a dude that can fit a role well as an offensive player, good cutter, floor spacer, diver, good screener, and let's put him in the offense. And also, by the way, on a per minute basis, Alex Caruso has a conversation as the best defensive guard or wing in the league, outside of Jonathan Isaac, maybe. And we're going to put that player on the team at 6'5", who's only 30 years old. So they're going to be able to have Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Kaysen Wallace, Alex Caruso, and J-Dub as their guard and wing rotation in the playoffs. And that's not including Kenrich Williams. And, we'll see what they want to do. They could add Isaiah Hartenstein. They could end up trading for Lauri Markkanen, maybe to get into Walker Kessler sweepstakes, and they could add him to the roster. There's so many ways for them to go. And I do agree with you. The fact that the Bulls and Arturas, who I think is, obviously has done really good things, it's not all their fault because Lonzo got hurt and that kind of disrupted everything they were doing. But the fact that the Bulls made this trade for Josh Giddey and didn't get any first-round picks for him, didn't get any future assets on top of that, that's very problematic given that Alex Caruso might be one of the 8 best championship role players you could ask for in the league.
Yeah. Now, I will say this. Caruso, this last season, he played 71 games, which is the most that he's ever played in his career. And he did get banged up a little bit along the way and was kind of questionable along the way. He does have problems staying healthy, and he only played 28.7 minutes. Like, he's not a 30 minutes per game kind of guy. Maybe that changes with OKC, but I think part of it is like they don't have to, because they can be like, no, we're just going to play Caruso 25 great minutes, and we'll play Kaysen Wallace another 25 great minutes, and we'll play, on down the line. It also means that their powder is dry to go ahead and add another guy, like you mentioned. If they go after Markkanen, or they go after Kessler, or they go after, if they do a deal to guys like Hartenstein, or they trade for Mitch Robinson, whatever it is, like the Thunder are only going to get better. And that's going to be, I think, a real problem for Denver next season, because the pathways for Denver to get better are very, very, very narrow. And it just kind of just show you, like, look, the Pelicans are looking to improve. I don't know if they're going to trade Ingram. I've heard mixed things on that. The Wolves, I think, are probably going to stay pat unless something really dramatic happens with Cat. The Warriors are at least going to reshape things. I think they're going to mostly duck the tax, so I'm not too worried about them.
Yeah.
But like, teams are going to get better, and like Wembanyama and the Spurs are coming. Like, that's coming, and they may have already cost the Nuggets a championship. So the Nuggets are really up against this with trying to keep together a championship roster, trying to improve a championship roster, trying to navigate all this, trying to stay healthy. And then on top of it, the West just keeps getting better and better and better, because this does mean that if the Thunder and Nuggets were to play, the Thunder now have so many guys they can throw at Denver's guards. Many guys they can throw at Denver's guards and wings. They still don't have anybody for Jokic, and that's a huge problem for them. But
or Aaron Gordon, for that matter,
being able to go at the other guys, I think is pretty helpful. So the West just keeps getting tougher.
Yeah, I don't think that Calvin Booth, for me, and again, I noted this a little bit yesterday, I don't think that you can look at what OKC did, what Minnesota has already done, and what moves will be made. Davion Mitchell, who knows if he stays with the Kings this year? Maybe. We'll see. There's just too many guards that are able to defend Jamal Murray at a high level. And let me ask you this, because I tried to go through this. OKC is going to have Kaysen, Shea, Caruso, Dub. They have 4 ball handlers that you can ostensibly trust at any point in time. The Nuggets have Jamal Murray. KCP is not a primary ball handler. MPJ. Aaron Gordon obviously can do it a little bit. But then as the guard position, Reggie Jackson, we saw he was banged up in the playoffs, and then Jalen Pickett. Do you think that the Nuggets have enough ball handlers that they trust and that are high level? Right.
Under no circumstances do they have enough ball handling.
Right.
And I think I don't know if Reggie's back. We'll see what happens with a number of things with that. I don't know like how this looks. Maybe Jalen is like the answer and it's just like the solve. But yeah, man, like they're really low on perimeter creation in general. Like I think the goal needs to be to take more off of Nicola's plate next season. Mm-hmm. And if they're not able to pull rabbits out of the hat, which they might, this front office is very smart. If they're not able to pull rabbits out of a hat here, then there's a very good chance that there's going to be more on Nicola. And that to me is like the question here is like, how creative are they willing to get? How much does the situation dictate massive change. I'm not saying it's going to happen. My inclination would be to say no. Like my inclination is to say that like we're not going to see many changes. And I know fans are clamoring to keep KCP and just deal with the second apron. I've tried to argue against this in terms of like, look, guys, it just really limits you. But things are getting tough. We'll see. We may feel entirely differently though in 3 weeks, where we may be like, look what the Nuggets did again. They're right back. Like, look at this awesome move that they pulled off. So we'll see what happens. Up next, I want to talk about the draft. We'll get Swipa's thoughts on the draft, early thoughts on those things, and more as we continue here on Locked On Nuggets. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks, the #1 daily fantasy sports app. You can do that with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 stat player projections and watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become part of the PrizePicks community today. With the finals over, the hoops action doesn't stop on PrizePicks because women's basketball is still heating up. With stars like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese looking to make names for themselves alongside the greats like Brianna Stewart and Asia Wilson, you can win up to 100 times your cash watching them ball out. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONNBA on PrizePicks for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us and making us part of your day. Swipa, how deep into draft talk are you? How deep have you dived into draft discussion for the Nuggets?
Yeah, I will not lie. Draft stuff is not my main forte. I dabble, but I trust people like CT with that. Eli, the Economist on Twitter. There are other people that I like to point into for those assets that spend a lot more time on it. There are several players I have looked at for the Nuggets around the 24 to 30 range, and then in the second round, some as well. There are definitely some options I see available. Right now, the Holmes talk has gotten so big. I would almost be surprised if he's available at 28, just because, and maybe that's just smoke. It could just be that there's just a lot of popularity being talked about. But again, most teams have already set their boards. They know what they want. They know what they're looking for. And at this point, it's just we're waiting for the 26 to get around and people can get into the players that they already had pre-decided they wanted to draft at those spots it's available. And then they have those players that are best available if they fall to them. So there are some players that are around that angle. I actually want to ask you, number one, are you locked into the draft stuff and some of the players that are around that range?
So I have taken a different approach, which is instead of trying to like scout these guys and keep an eye on them and trying, like, I have my own opinions on some of these guys, but I try and just listen to as much as I can from the smart draft people that I know and try and pick up as much intel as I can. And so that to me is like is where I find a little bit more value, because instead of me trying to project on what an 18-year-old is going to be, I try and instead be like, well, okay, like here's what I kind of expect, who I expect to be available, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The stuff with the Drawn Holmes stuff, I think that what's surprising here is like there's kind of this idea of like, oh yeah, like everyone's kind of putting him in Denver, and I'm just like, how often has that been the case? In most teams outside of the top 5, but especially with Denver? Like I don't know how much Julian Strawther was on the lists last year. I'm sure some of the smart draft people that cover the Nuggets were, CT and et cetera, were in on Strawther, but in general, I don't know how often it was like mocked for Strawther to wind up in Denver. And that to me, I think is like relevant if we're going to kind of look at this as just like, if it's really expected to happen, I don't know if that's what's going to occur based off of kind of those expectations. And like Holmes has a lot of different, I think, concerns with him and how he kind of works out. Now, ESPN reported that Holmes did shut down workouts, and speculation is that the Nuggets made him a promise. And you're right that what that could wind up meaning is like, yeah, he's got a ceiling or he's got a floor at 28, but he could also wind up being taken higher. And if that, and then Denver winds up going in a different direction. I mean, look, 6'9", 236, good shot blocker. Everything kind of, he makes a lot of sense for Denver, but I also don't know that I am just skeptical whenever. So here's a good thing. It comes out that like he shut down workouts and therefore X. Okay. Is that coming from the team or is that coming from the agent? So much of the stuff that comes out about where a player is expected to be picked comes from the agents telling reporters, we had this conversation with them and we expect to go there, rather than the team ultimately deciding that. Because oftentimes those conversations continue up until the night of the draft. So I'm just like, it's not that I don't think that Drawn Holmes is going to be the pick, but I also am kind of like, I'm not gonna pencil anything in until we actually get the pen put it in pen when the actual pick comes out.
Right. Have you looked into Terrence Shannon Jr. at all?
I mean,
So the whole situation was resolved, and again, I'm saying legally was resolved. It was
yeah,
legally meaning
resolved.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was legally resolved, and so at this point, he's about he's a 6'6", like two-way value kind of guard wing that has projected to fall because of some of this stuff. So I think that's gonna. I think up ahead of the Nuggets, I don't know to the Nuggets, but up ahead of the Nuggets could throw some things off here and there. I've seen Holmes. I've seen him being mocked all the way to the Nuggets at 28 and then all the way up to the 12 with the Thunder, just given what they need at the big position. So I have no idea what they're going to do there. I will say this. The Nuggets at this point, they passed on Andrew Nembhard in 2020. What was that? 23, 22, 2022 for Peyton Watson, which I think was a smart move for what they were looking for. But I think they should be looking for a player that fits that kind of ceiling in terms of you have a guard that's a bigger player that has a lot of upside as a potential defensive guard that can lean into the system that you need, somebody that can play next to Jamal Murray, somebody that you would trust to be able to get in and out of actions. I do hope that over the course of the next couple of weeks that they're prioritizing some of that stuff and that they're looking at that as their draft asset. They're looking at that in free agency because, again, I just think that everybody has kind of seen now that, again, Murray was most effective when he had a player that can take that responsibility away from him and off of him. He didn't have to do it consistently in Bruce Brown. But then we went into this year with a different kind of philosophy as a basketball team. But so, we'll see. There are a lot of players that could potentially really add, bless you, to the Nuggets in their rotation. But I mean, honestly, like the Nuggets are banking on Peyton Watson, Christian Brown, Julian Strawther, and it sounds like one of their draft picks panning out for them and that becoming a part of their big 9-man rotation. So they're going to have to hit if they do decide to draft in a couple of days.
I just don't know that. I don't know that I want a rookie in this job, man. I just don't know that that's the way to go for a team that's trying to win a championship. I don't think having a point guard is the hardest position for young guys to learn, and that's a really sharp curve. And you're also creating a little bit of not a glut. You're creating like competition with him and Pickett, right? When I think the front office still has a lot of belief in Pickett at the top, and so I just don't know that like going in that direction, having another primary ball handler that way. I think it's better to go after a veteran in that kind of dynamic. Somebody had mentioned this, they would be disappointed if the Nuggets use the pick that they want them to trade it for a veteran. Would you rather them see them do that on draft night?
Of course. If you're telling me that you could somehow, and I've already said this, and again, this is a pipe dream, but you know what I've realized about the Chicago Bulls? Whatever you think is a pipe dream, it really isn't. So Ayo Dosunmu, I think that anybody should be trying to get him. I don't know if they'll trade him. I wouldn't trade him. A 6'4.5" guard that's a two-way player that shot well from three last year. I wouldn't do it. But you know what? They might end up doing it. Like, I think that a Davion Mitchell, an Ayo type of player, would make much more sense given they're young, they're assets that are defensive assets, and they can help you do what you want to do. And they've already been in the NBA system. So they know what their responsibility is. And I think Ayo's making like $7 million a year right now, too. So it's within their window. They wanted to trade for him and use that first-round pick as some bait and give them some more assets in Chicago. But, again, to me, that sounds low. But to Chicago, apparently, that doesn't sound all that bad.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I think everything I've heard is they want to keep Kobe, Ayo, DeMar, and they're willing to trade Vooch, Levine, and Caruso.
DeMar.
Yeah, I've heard. I mean, look, I could be wrong. These things change. Like, I thought there was zero chance Malik Monk was coming back to Sacramento. I thought there was zero. So keep that in mind when I've kind of written KCP out the door. Is like I thought there was a 0% chance.
Who do you think is worth more for you as a player?
Oh, KCP for sure.
You think so?
Yeah.
Wow.
Defense. Guys that don't need the ball and can defend are really valuable. They help you win. They help you win games.
Monk played decent defense when he was healthy though last year. I mean, he's not like lockdown, but
yeah, like to King's degree. Yes.
So wait, first off, they had a player that got a DPOY vote, sir.
That they did. That is correct. Sacramento did rank last season.
17th? Let me guess. 17th?
No, higher. 13th.
13th.
Oh.
So,
all right. Up next, Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving got exposed by Boston.
Ugh.
Is Denver at the same kind of risk if they were to face Boston or a team like them in the finals? We'll talk about that next on Locked On Nuggets. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools you need to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. Hiring's easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. That way you can just kind of pour through these things. You're not having to make gut reads or trying to intuit what's on or not on a person's resume. That to me, I think is really important for you being able to kind of sort through those things. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us, making us part of your day. Appreciate you guys being with us. So, Swipa, in the finals, Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving got absolutely obliterated by switching everything, getting caught in switches, and being targeted relentlessly by Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and the Boston Celtics. The defensive problems with those two, after all of the talk of the Mavericks being an elite defense because they jammed the paint and dared good shooters to shoot, and then those guys missed, kind of got exposed because they got torn up repeatedly, consistently, over and over and over again. My question for you is, I think that when the Nuggets were younger, they had the ability to do a little bit more of this, but I am a little bit worried, especially with how some of the bigs really went at Jamal in the Wolves series on switches, and some of the wings as well, and how the matchups played out in the Wolves series. I am a little bit more concerned about Denver's ability to hold up in one-on-one situations. I think their systemic defense is really solid, especially with Nikola. I think there are ways around that. Now, Nikola plays more drop, and I do think that he used to, and I think that it is difficult, and it's why they have to have guards that can get over the screen the way KCP does. Like, you have to have high-level defenders at the two-guard spot on the wing to be able to compensate, because if teams are just putting Jamal and Joker into these pick and rolls, I do have concerns about it at this point. But do you think that there should be at least some eye on Denver of how they're going to mitigate those kind of problems, or do you have faith and confidence that Denver's best players can stand up to being attacked consistently?
Do you think Denver has a better defense than the Mavs do?
Ooh. Huh. That's a good question.
They don't have better vertical spacers, obviously, but better raw defense.
I think, God, that's a really good question. I think they're about even.
Okay. Well, in the series, the Mavs defense wasn't their true issue. It was their offense. Their offense fell apart. Their defense was bad, but I think mostly every time they tried to attack Luka, basically from games 1 to 3, it was an Olay right to the middle of the paint, and then that led to kickouts or open opportunities at the rim, or putting Drew Holiday down low. That way they would have a big that would try to stay away from the rim and play in between Drew Holiday and the rim, and then like open 3-point shooters, and then Luka wasn't making rotations. I mean, I think when they stayed in front, they played good defense. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you, man. The Celtics, like, they were really good, but it's not as if like the Mavs just did not have, I think, the commitment and the buy-in to be able to play high-level defense consistently. Whereas the Nuggets, I think the difference is that they would have to, because they know that they're playing Joker up at the level they're playing drop. Like, Joker is going to have to shut off the water at some point, or else it's going to be ugly. And then KCP obviously going to have to get over the screen. But I also say that I think the Nuggets should have more assets to go to. Aaron Gordon, KCP, Christian Brown, and then having Justin Holiday and having Peyton Watson. I mean, those are all capable defenders, to very good defenders. And then I think, MPJ and Murray are having to buy into an idea. Then Jokic is having to play good defenses because he has to. And then he gets switched out into Drew Holiday in the regular season matchups. Is able to contain well at times. So really that comes down to effort. But it really, Matt, for me, comes down onto the other end. If you're asking me, can the Nuggets take advantage of the Celtics' defensive issues better than the Mavs did. Well, this without a question. They just have better personnel. They also have a player that's starting at the inside of your defense and creating more havoc on you. And then on top of that, Al Horford and KP, they would have had no chance, I think, defensively in that series. So I think the Nuggets would have been better overall because they think they would have committed, especially in the fourth quarter and winning time. But they've already shown that versus Boston as well. So I do think they perform better. Go ahead.
I'm going to push back there. I think we got to get off of the idea that you can like the winning time thing. I think we got to move off of that. And the reason I think
winning what
the whole idea that like, well, the Nuggets clutch time, they'll take care of it. So not only did they lose those clutch time minutes versus the Wolves twice, blowing a 20-point lead and losing in the clutch, and they lost 2 games in the clutch in that series, but we saw late in the season they lost home clutch games to the Suns and the Mavericks. You can't rely on that stuff. Like you just can't rely on it. You got to be good.
They didn't play. I don't think they played the Mavericks at home. They played the Mavericks in Dallas.
Nope, they played Dallas. They played Dallas. Didn't they play? I thought
they played Dallas. In season, they played Dallas when they lost the Kyrie game, and that was in Dallas, I believe. But they did lose to the Suns when they were down 10, and then they got to that Kevin Durant 3. I think that tied the game up or put them ahead. I can't remember.
Yeah, but that tied the game up. So
yeah.
They stormed back in that game. Remember they were down big, and then they got to overtime.
Yeah.
I just don't think you can build. I am no longer of the opinion that is like, I'm pretty firmly on clutch is very noisy and you're leaving it up to way too much variance. And so relying
they were number 7 in half court defense this year.
Yeah.
Though, if I believe
they were. Yeah.
So I mean, if they're set, they can do it. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. And I think that some of that though is like, that's where they were. That's how good they were in November, December, and January. And the question is just like, are they still that team? Because I do think like things changed. Like I think things changed over the back half of the season. They got worn out. Their guys were getting older, and I think that factors into some of this. I think, like I do look at the fact of Joker playing as many years as he has as consistently. Like he looked worn out in the series versus the Wolves, and he's going right back to work at the end of the month with Team Serbia, and then he's going to roll right back into training camp. And I'm just
I think I have a hard time with that with 29, 27, and then 25-year-old, or now Porter's 26 now, but I think that's a little. I do think they need to spread out their minutes 1,000%. I think that's a part of it. It's just I think they played 400 more minutes basically than the next closest starting lineup, and that's with Jamal only playing 59 games last year. So I think they over relied on their starters tremendously. They have to be able to build in more rotational players for sure, 1,000%.
But I've also seen. Like something that I think is really funny to look at is I try and tell people this and they think I'm insane. You see how Westbrook defends now, like he's become a good defender in these last couple of years of his career. He was awesome the first couple of years in the league because he was so athletic and he was so locked in. And then starting around 2014 is when like he started to really be like so offensively centric that he just started like cutting corners. And most guys do that as they get older because their offensive games are better. Now you have defensive specialists. I don't expect like Aaron's not going to stop trying, right? Like Aaron's going to perform at a high level. I think he's going to give good effort defensively, but I just have some of those kind of concerns about it. And I do think that there's, I have some concerns about being able to be targeted in different ways here with how Denver's built. We were talking about like which defense is better. I think the Nuggets perimeter defense was actually better. I think they have better point of attack defenders. Like I like Jamal as a point of attack defender better than Kyrie.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I will take Aaron Gordon over PJ Washington.
DJJ.
That probably goes DJ. That probably goes DJJ.
This one, yeah. And then KCP, obviously, Luka, Christian Brown, Tim Hardaway Jr., Peyton
honestly,
Watson.
Honestly, a better comparison is that MPJ is a better defender than Luka, and KCP is a better defender than DJJ. That's actually the way that we should cross that.
Sure.
But if we talk about systemic stuff, as much as the Nuggets are better at perimeter stuff, which is helpful in those point of attack stuff or the switching stuff, the Mavericks are so much better at rim protection. Like they just defend so much better down there. Now, look, I looked this up. Denver within 5 feet last year in the regular season was 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9th. So they weren't bad, right? Like they weren't bad, and that's notable. But I do kind of worry that that's getting to be a bigger and bigger issue is their ability to effectively rim protect. Because I do think you need to be like, you have to be able to do both. You have to be able to help down to protect the rim and then recover to the outside. And I do think that those are areas where Denver.
But would you say that even to the Wolves series though, the problem wasn't their defense; it was their defense, like at stretches. But their offense went putrid, like frozen tundra cold in the second half, and I think that's a part of it too. I do think that's to your fatigue thing. But I'm not gonna lie, beyond fatigue, because I just don't like making excuses for young men, being tired like that. Everybody's tired. Like this is the second round of the playoff. We're all tired. But I think some of this is they froze up. Like people froze. They didn't want to shoot the ball. They didn't know how to play ball. They were literally just looking at Joker. Joker, feed us, help us, like save us from the moment that we're in right now. They didn't look like the same team mentally. So that's what I'm saying. Like even in the regular season, they do need to tone down their minutes. But if you're telling me you get into a playoff series with the Thunder or the Wolves or whoever else and you're tired, well, then we're having a did you take care of yourself in the summer issue, or or what are you doing on off days type of issue? Everybody, Matt, but I'm a little different. Like again, that's just not acceptable. Like in football, we don't. If the Patrick Mahomes or your Kadarius Toney, the reason he's dropping the ball is because he's tired. Well, what are you doing? Like, why are you not taking care? Like, you know what I mean? It's just little basic stuff. So
I totally agree. Like, I'm with you on this. Think, like, we should the standards should be high. They're professional athletes. The whole job is to be in shape. And I just think that I do worry that, look at it this way. I was worried about Jamal's defense in the beginning of his career, right? And he was kind of a target in 2019, especially in the first series.
Kind of Rodney Hood.
Yeah. Oh man, there's a name. But he got better. Like I thought 2020, he was so much better and he really competed. And I thought he really competed last year.
Yeah.
But these things are not always linear, and you can have times when like guys that aren't defensively oriented take steps backward. And I worry not only for Jamal, but like I worry like what if MPJ takes a step backwards on that end? What if Joker, they keep being like, we just got to play drop. He can't play at the level. It's too much to take out of him. That really worries me. I'm just always of the opinion that if you don't have really great, if you are not, nails in play and drop coverage, you're going to be in trouble. And that worries me a little bit for the defense going into next season, even though the defense was by far the biggest gainer in terms of like, it was so much better this year than it was the year before. They were a really good defensive team. And you're right that it wasn't why they lost the second round because they had a 106.8 offensive rating. You're absolutely right. Like that offense was a problem. But I do think that I at least have some concern that they're going to find themselves in spots where tough decisions have to be made about who can and cannot be on the floor.
Well, I think that's it though. That to me, it's a Booth thing. Like Booth, you have to recognize that, and if we're seeing it, then you have to see it. But again, Booth has gone defense the last two drafts. He just got a shooter in Julian Strawther. So I think that's where the Holmes whole idea comes from. Is that you need another big that can play defense at a high level. That's not Zeke Nnaji, that you can use and play, and Malone will use and play. And then you need a guard that can play defense and that can get to the rim. So they know what they need. So is that Tristan Newton? Is that who they're going to be pointing to? Is that who they're going to give the opportunity to? Maybe. But I'm telling you right now, again, Matt, this is why personnel is everything. You just described so many things: drop coverage, effort, rotations, rim protection. You know who doesn't do any of that stuff? Reggie Jackson, Colin, and Jalen, because they physically are not the type of players that excel in those systems, because you need longer, lengthier, stronger players to be able to fit within that mold. So we'll see. We'll see what they target.
All right, it's going to do it for Locked On Nuggets for Friday. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate you guys being with us. Make sure to hit the like button on youtube.com/LockedOnNuggets. Give us a subscribe over there as well. If you're listening, take a second and give us a 5-star review. They help. You have no idea how much they help us. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys again next week. We'll have World's Finest on Sunday night with me and Adam. Talk to you guys then next time on Locked On Nuggets.